just start the recording from here.
Okay.
Going on?
Hey, Coach, can you hear us good?
I can.
All right, good. I've got one of your players beside me right now.
Yeah, he roped me into this, Coach. This is Will. So I get to throw a little gas on the flames here to get some good stories.
Well, go ahead, take your best shot.
All right, so I've got it rolling already. So the first question I ask every guest is how they got into their profession. So how did you get into your coaching profession?
Well, I was doing an internship for my master's in the athletic office at King's College, and the baseball coach quit, and so I applied for the baseball coach job along with a guy named Billy Robinson, who's the basketball coach at Milligan, a good friend of mine, and the athletic director picked him to do that. Well, like a week later, the softball coach quit, and I was literally an internship. I just got married. I had no money, $0, and they were like, it pays $4,000. I didn't know anything about softball, but I was like, yeah, I'll do it. So I wound up started coaching softball, and one thing led to another, and then next thing you know, I'm out in Kentucky out there.
I'm gonna jump right into this one because this is something that has an impact on a lot. It, as me as a coach, but then pass along to anybody that played for me and now coaches. Tell about the ladder, our conditioning, about how you got the idea of the ladder, and then we've got all these other guys who are coaching high school now. They make their teams run the ladder, poor guys. But tell me where you got that.
I went to a coach's clinic in Hartford, Connecticut, and the guy was, I can't think of his name. Was it Danny Nee? Who was that guy who invented that thing? I forget who it was.
Was it Billy Tubbs?
Who was it?
It was Texas A&M, from what I remember you telling me.
Yeah, that's it. Tony Baroni. It was Tony Baroni at Texas A&M. That's a great memory, Will. And so I just did it. We did it at King's my first year. I was like, man, this thing is awesome. It just kills these people. And so I've always done it ever since. I haven't had my JV kids out run on the football field because we weren't allowed to be in the gym yet. And I had them do it on the football field one day.
Oh, that sounds miserable.
Parents did not like that. Parents were against that.
Well, so for our listeners, the ladder is a conditioning drill, and you'd have to get the explanation of it, but it's something that it's very physically challenging, but it's more mentally challenging. Leading up to it, if you got word somehow, some way that you were going to run the ladder that day, just wreck the rest of your day. And it still has that impact. It's still impacting.
Oh yes, for sure.
Yep, Kevin Burton used to call me every year still to get the times down because he never remembered to write them down. So yeah. I'd have to fill him in every year on what the times were. But yeah, like you said, it's much more. I think it's every bit as more mentally challenging as it is physically challenging. It just wears on you. It's just a beat down.
My son has now ran the ladder, and he enjoyed it as much as I did.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I remember when you put your cross-country team out there that one year to run alongside us that one time, Will.
Yes. Turner let the cat out of the bag. He interviewed me in one of his podcasts, and everybody knows now that my first head coaching job was the women's cross-country coach there, so yeah.
Hey, I did a year of coaching cross-country at IU East. That was a wild year is all I can say about that.
We better do a double episode with that one.
So, Coach, going to your playing days, who are some of the athletes that you looked up to growing up?
I mean, I was a Sixers fan, so I always liked the Sixers. But I didn't play high school basketball. I didn't play junior high school basketball. I just played in the city league. So I didn't really have I would just watch whatever sport was on TV. And so, when it's baseball season, I like the Phillies. When it's basketball season, I like the Flyers and the Sixers. And football season, I like the Eagles. So I guess, Julius Erving was probably my favorite basketball player growing up. But Andrew Toney, he was lights out, man, a Boston Strangler. I used to love watching him get heated.
Oh, see, I love when you talk about this era because Turner usually gets the guys who are more current. So, which leads me into our next one that I've told him about a lot. Your time with the Washington Generals, how did that come about, and kind of talk about that a little bit?
It was just strange. I was sitting in a warehouse working in the summer after I graduated from college, and I got a phone call from my coach, Bill Harris, who I played for in college, and he said, I just got a call from some guy at the Washington Generals. They want you to come for a tryout over in Margate. He goes, I don't know anything about it. So I just went over to try. It was so funny. We played 2-on-2. It was me and this other kid trying. This point guard from Lehigh University was trying out. the other guy was the owner played. He was probably 60 years old at the time, and they just grabbed this random guy off the court, and we played. Such a funny, such a great memory. Anyhow, we played 2-on-2, and then we went back, and they did the whole big thing with the generals is like a lot of psychological stuff. Like you had to have a pretty good sense of humor. You couldn't take yourself too seriously because you're gonna get made fun of for an entire year. Right. And so the basketball was one thing, but then I guess I did good on the psychological part. I can laugh at myself, and so. Which actually came in handy when my first 14 years at Asbury College. But an ability to laugh at yourself was a big part of that Washington Generals stuff.
Well, I tell him that there's certain rules that you broke along the way. Not too bad, but like you couldn't block the girl. And what was the other one? They go into their spiel where they're doing the figure eight with the ball, and you run in.
Yeah, I stole the ball out. I stole the ball out of it. That went down for a layup at the other end. And the coach comes in our locker room at halftime. He said, the Globetrotter's been here 50 years before you got here, and they're about 50 years after you're gone. If you ever do that again, you're getting sent home.
All right, Turner, your turn.
Hey, Coach. So, Dan has talked to me about this, and I think it's cool. I mean, I've kind of tried to apply it, but you had a lot of goals, like even like summer goals, like playing pickup everywhere in the summer, and you're trying to get 1,000 points. So where did all these goals and aspirations come from?
Well, I tell you, where I grew up in Ocean City, New Jersey, man, back in the day, pickup was a huge thing. I mean, people played literally every day, almost from like middle of the afternoon until the lights went out at 9 o'clock. And so I just made it a goal. Like I wanted to get better. I wasn't very good my first year playing, and I just wanted to get better. I really liked the game, and so I just said I'm just going to go every day. And so one way to motivate myself is I'm going to keep track of how many baskets I make this summer. And the first year I tried to do 1,000, I got 500, maybe 450, something like that. And the next year I went back and I did get 1,000. And I tell you, it was I literally still have a piece of paper. I'm actually in my garage right now, and I can see the tub that the piece of paper is in that I kept track of all that stuff on. So that was a way of motivating me. Some people get motivated by watching stuff. You got to find what motivates you, and for me it was numbers and just keeping track of things.
Well, I know Turner has been doing this himself, so I don't know how many he's got right now, but it's not 1,000 yet.
It's hard, man. I'm telling you, I played a lot that summer. I really did. And you know what the thing helped me most was? That summer? I'll tell you what, the only reason I made my goal is because I got kicked out of school for a week. I got suspended for lighting fires in the dorm. And so I went home to New Jersey for a week early, and I got 100 points in that week, and that was the reason why I was able to get up. Because I got 1,030 or something. So...
Hey, so during that time, was there, whenever you're motivated, you're scoring and all that, was there ever a time where, you were motivated and then all of a sudden a guy just came and just gave you buckets or something like that?
Oh, yeah. I was never a great defensive player. A lot of people, there's a long line of people who have given me buckets. Don't worry about that.
Oh, man. All right, my turn here. So, Big East basketball, you had kind of educated me on that as a player and as your assistant coach, and how big of an impact did that have? Obviously, where you're from, but I love when you throw out some names of the guys that were in your era that you really liked in the Big East.
Well, I tell you, I had a good time with you going up to see that Temple game. We went up to I guess it was the A-10 back then. Yeah, the A-10 tournament. We went up there to Cincinnati, and we saw John Chaney's defense. Man, those guys in the front of that 3-2 were so big and long, weren't they?
A guy named Marty Collins.
Played. Boy, it's a good memory, Will. Yeah, Marty Collins. But I grew up with Dwayne McClain and Eddie Pickney, and even before that, Big John Pannone, this big white stiff of a center. Tom Grice was 7'5". He couldn't run. He's as mobile as my refrigerator, but he was 7'5", and he was a big guy. I remember. But those games with Georgetown, Georgetown had such talent back then. Syracuse, man, Ronnie Cycli and Derek Coleman and Raphael Addison, Pearl Washington. Big East St. John's with Bill Wennington and Chris Mullen. And
they put out my Wildcats with when Rex Chapman was there. What was the guy's name? Played for Villanova.
The shooter, the lefty shooter.
Yeah.
Harold Jensen.
Yeah. That was a disappointment. I was just really falling in love with the game. I was a huge Rex Chapman fan, and your Villanova Wildcats got him his last ever game.
Yeah. You must have been young then. You had to be 6, 7, 8.
Yeah, Dad was just turning the TV on, and saying you need to play like this guy. Little did we know that none of us could jump like Rex. We had this dream that you couldn't. But yeah, so that was my guy who I was supposed to want to play like, but never quite got there.
Welcome to Rexington.
That's right.
Man, he was outstanding in college. And
Yes.
I tell you think of that era though. You know when Shaquille O'Neal and the other, I can't think of the guard's name. It was down there at LSU right around the same time, man.
Chris Jackson.
Who was that?
Chris Jackson.
Yes, Chris Jackson, man. I mean, that was just such a fun era. At least everyone thinks the era they grew up watching is the best. And so
Right.
obviously I'm biased. Man, it was such a fun era
Yes.
watching that basketball.
Yes.
So going into that, who are some of your favorite players that you like to watch during that era?
I think I like Julius Erving was my favorite player. Andrew, I love the Sixers. Even Big Caldwell Jones. He's like 7'2". Just a real good defensive player. Never really scored many buckets, but just a real good defensive player. Mark Ivoroni was this big goofy white guy from the University of Virginia. Moses Malone that one year, man, they were so good that year with Moses in there dominating. It was just those were a lot of the guys. I mean, I was just a Sixers fan. But I tell you what, if you go back now, and you should do this because I don't think people appreciate. Go back and find some Larry Bird highlights, man. I mean, that guy used to torch the Sixers. It was embarrassing.
Oh, yeah.
But some of the highlights that he had, I was just watching a YouTube thing a few weeks ago, and it was like 15 minutes of the greatest Larry Bird plays. And it's just crazy how good, how well he saw the floor, what a great passer he was.
The access to film and stuff is crazy now. We had to tape stuff. Remember, you had to tape it on VHS and hold on to. You definitely weren't getting highlights. You had to watch the whole game.
Hey, Billy Robinson sent me a text last week, and he said, I found a game in college when we were playing against ENC. It was he scored his 1,000th point, and I said I had 45 points in the game. It was a school record. He goes, I literally just found the tape. I'm going to send it to you. So I've never seen it before. I can't wait. Can't wait to see this.
Oh, I love it. So I'm going to step out here in a second and let Turner do his job because I feel like I'm dominating it. But the last thing that I'm going to ask is tell the story because I just took my daughter to visit Western Kentucky. And when I played for you, we played against Western. It was my junior year, and Western had beat Louisville that year and they beat Kentucky with the same team the next year. And there was a big guy, Chris Marcus, which I don't know if you knew this, but he passed away.
I heard that somewhere, yeah.
But anyway, kind of tell, because like I said, not a lot of film and not believing kind of what you see coming into that game.
Yeah, so we're watching him stretch out, and before the game, I'm sitting there with Coach Root, and they got this guy's huge, and it's like, man, this guy, he's pretty big, but he's really not that big. I think his name, it turned out it was David Boykin, I think his name was.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden, Chris Marcus comes walking out of the tunnel, and he's like, I don't know, 7'2", like 350. I mean, he was just, it blocked out the sun when he came into the arena right there. So the game goes on, and we actually led 2-0 in that game, but we can't score at all. I mean, Gavin Washington got a shot block 3 times in the same possession. I'm not making that up. He literally got a block 3 times in the same possession.
Access denied. I still remember that. They would yell.
The last media timeout of the game, we had 19 points. It was like 3:50 to go in the game. And I turned to my assistant, Chuck Root, and I said, are we really going to score less than 20 points in a college basketball game? And he's like, oh, we'll do something. So I think you hit a couple shots, Will. But I also remember yelling at Will. He had like an open 30-footer. And I was like, you got to shoot that. I mean, you just got to shoot that ball. Because we weren't getting any looks at all. Man, it was they were so good defensively, and we had some guards that could go some places, but they had a guy, I think it was Chris Robinson maybe, and he would press up on you, and we got around him a couple times, and then you go right into Marcus, and there's just nothing you could do. So even if you got past their incredible defensive guards, this guy was just waiting to serve you some lunch there at the rim. So it was I think the final score, Will would have to look it up.
I remember
71 to 29, maybe 81 to 29.
81-29, yeah. So that paycheck cashed the same.
I know we scored 10 points in the last media timeout, and I'm pretty sure you hit 2 threes and got yelled at for not shooting another one.
Well, Coach, good to talk to you. I'm gonna let Turner do his job here.
All right, Will, good talking to you. Thanks for getting on.
You're welcome.
All right, Coach. So you were talking about it. You were talking about Dr. J a little bit. So I normally do a big like Jordan LeBron debate, but I'm going to switch it to this. So whenever Dr. J, I mean he was great. I mean he was Dad's father-in-law, Stu. I mean you remember Stu?
Sure.
Yeah, so Stu is a big Dr. J guy. So, whenever Dr. J was dominating, and then Jordan came into the picture, how did you feel like whenever people started to say like Jordan was better than Dr. J?
I mean, the reality was what the reality was. Jordan was incredible. I'll never forget that Sunday afternoon game. I think it was his rookie year when he had 63 in the Boston Garden overtime game, and I mean, it was just it was just at another level. And I love Julius Erving. He's one of the top 50 players of all time, no doubt. But I mean, Jordan is Jordan, and all the championships and just the relentless work ethic and all that. It's just he is what he is.
Mm-hmm. So
So I didn't mind. I think I had a pretty good perspective on that.
Oh yeah. But so back to talking about the summers that you'd play a lot of basketball. Was there, because sometimes with players like me, I try to emulate some people like with certain skills and stuff like that. Were there any guys that like you watched that like you tried to like take part of their game whenever you're trying to play?
Nah, I don't have a lot of skills. You know what I was good at, honestly? I was good at running as fast as I could and having Billy Robinson pass me the ball because he's such a great passer. And literally, I owe him everything, good and bad, that basketball has done for me because he was such a great player. He made me so much better than I actually was. I'm a terrible drill. Literally, I'm not making this up. My son is 11 years old. He's a much better ball handler than I am today, and I coached for 21 years. I've got limited skills, but I could run fast. And I could get an open area and I get off a quick shot. But Billy Robinson is who I emulated, or who made my game.
Mm-hmm. So going to, with you coaching Dad and others, how was it whenever you took the Asbury job, which Asbury was a smaller school, in the basketball program, wasn't real big at all. How'd you feel about that?
Well, I was excited to be a coach until I got there. I got hired on October 23rd was my first day. Our first game was November 11th. I'm not kidding you. I didn't know everyone's name on the team. Like, I couldn't remember names in that 3-week window we had to learn everybody's name. We were not very good, and I didn't know what I was doing. I made a bad situation worse because just my inexperience in youth. I was like 26 maybe, 27, something like that. So I was pretty inexperienced, like I said, I didn't play in high school or middle school or anything like that. So, my knowledge was real lacking. So it was a tough go. And I always had a saying. I used to tell people the best thing about working at Asbury Athletics is that nobody cares, and the worst thing about working is that nobody cares. And so I got away. Most places probably would have fired me after a year. I mean, we're 6-51 after 2 years. So that's about as bad as it gets. Most places you get fired after being that bad, but, they didn't have anybody else, and I wasn't getting in trouble anywhere, so they just let me go until I learned and got better.
Yeah, what made you keep going whenever it was the losing seasons like that?
Honestly, if my first year we went 0-28. If we went 1-27, I probably would have quit and just stayed in Jersey. But it's like, man, you can't quit after losing every single game. So I went back for the next year and it got a little better, and then the next year we got Jason Price, and it got a little better, and then all of a sudden, we got your dad's class. I think there were 6 seniors or 7 seniors in that class that were really good. And, then we turned the corner. We went to the National Christian Tournament. And my first 6 years, we had losing records. And my last 8, we had winning records. So it got to be more and more fun.
What would you say?
Then I got fired. And that was the end of that.
Yeah. What would you say, as you started to coach more, because you said, you didn't play a lot of basketball, how did you learn about the game a lot during the times that you're coaching?
I went to a lot of clinics and stuff. I did do a lot of that, and plus a lot of trial and error. I just, I knew one thing is that Kentucky always has a lot of kids that can shoot, and there's not a lot of scholarships for those kids. So, people like your dad is a perfect example of a guy who was a really good player, but he's not going to get a scholarship because, he's not 6'3", and he's not, all kinds of muscle or whatever. So I was able to recruit kids like that, and then it kind of said, hey, how can we generate some offense with all these short guys? And well, let's take a lot of threes, let's push the ball hard, and that makes it easier to recruit, I felt like, because, hey, come to Asbury, you're going to get to shoot a lot, you're not going to have a lot of limitations on what you're doing offensively, and I think kids kind of bought into that. So it sort of just built itself. And like I did say, I went to a lot of clinics and stuff that just kind of improved my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And I had good assistants. Kevin Burton was a great assistant. Your dad was a great assistant. Chuck Root is a fantastic guy. A huge assistant for me for over the years. So I had a lot of really good assistants there.
Mm-hmm. Who are some of the more impactful like guys that you went to clinics and like listened to?
UB Brown. Now his language is real salty, but UB Brown, he can explain things like. I mean, he's just fantastic. Danny Nee was another real good clinic. I don't think he was a great coach. It didn't seem like it ever happened for him as far as his teams went. But when he sat down and broke things down, I just ripped off like 6 or 7 of his plays. The one clinic I went to. I mean, we ran him when your dad was there, and ran him 10 years after your dad graduated. So I think he had a big influence. Later, when I got to ENC, Jay Wright, I like a lot of stuff Jay Wright does, so I ripped off a lot of that stuff. But that was post Asbury.
Mm-hmm. So Dad actually wrote this down. I'm going to take it from him. So, and of course, I don't know as much of the background as he did with it, but Dad had mentioned with ENC about like the Boston recruiting.
I didn't recruit. That was what got me in trouble up there. Is I couldn't get any local kids. We had such a bad reputation. When I got there, we had 14 straight losing seasons in basketball, and I quickly put up 3 more, trying to recruit local kids, and we had a bad reputation. So then I got kids from Oklahoma City and a bunch of kids from Atlanta, and a couple other cities out west, and Los Angeles, a couple kids from LA or the LA area. And so I said, hey, you already grew up in a city. Come out to a different city, experience something different, and you get a chance to play and shoot a bunch of threes and all that. And it was like night and day. We went from 4-21 one year to 18-9 the next year. Just switch on, switch off, and D3 team that year in the whole country.
So with you coaching many different levels of basketball, would you like to see any rule changes to any level?
I hate that they took the shot clock down to 30 seconds. I like that at 35. I absolutely hate that. I hate on the TV all the reviews in the last, check and see the ball touched on the way out of bounds. I hate that. We could go back. We could lose that as far as I'm concerned. I don't think a whole lot of rule changes other than those 2 stick out of my head.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about this NIL stuff that's been going on?
It's good for the kids. I think we need Congress, I think, to get involved and put some sort of binding rules on it. I think it's a little too loose right now. The concept is great. I'm 100% in support of the concept. I think kids ought to be able to make money, but I just don't like that. It's almost completely unregulated now, and so it's going to mean that people like in football, Alabama and Georgia are going to have this enormous advantage. In basketball, Kentucky and North Carolina are going to have this enormous advantage, even beyond the advantages they already have. And I don't think that's good for the sport. I think it's a great concept. We need to tweak it a little bit. We need to get tweaked a little bit.
Mm-hmm. So as you were coaching, did you have any like big impacts that like you like? I mean, or like go to people that like you would talk to or ask for advice?
Yeah, I mentioned Billy Robinson many times, but he and I. We've been talking for 4 years now, so I always talk to him a lot. Your dad, I really liked him when he was my assistant. He did a great job, but then he left and went to Kentucky Christian for 2 years, and we talked. I don't know. I won't say every day. We probably talked 4 times a week. Then it was always good to bounce things because he knew Asbury. He knew most of the kids that were still in the program, and so it was always good to bounce. And he was a younger coach, and so he was trying to pick my brain because he had some wild kids that first year at KCU. Wild, not behavior-wise, wild basketball-wise. Yeah. And then my coach I played for in college, I still talk to him all the time, even today now that I'm not coaching anymore. And Bill Harris, who was at Wheaton, but he coached me at Kings, and he was a huge influence on my life. And like I said, I talked to him whenever I was making a big decision. I always ask him about it.
So with younger guys like trying to get into coaching, like what advice would you give them?
Do not do it. There's better ways to make a living. Go to pharmacy school. They start at like $100,000 a year. You'll be so much better off. But if you really want to go down that path, man, it is a rough road. I would say get hooked up get hooked up at the D1 level, because that's just what people are looking for now. They want that D1 stuff on your resume. And so whatever avenue you can get, start out the camps, work at the any kind of summer camp for D1 that you can get, and then try to get a GA somewhere and move up that way. It's a lot easier to go down than it is to go up. So if you can start at the D1 level, you're gonna have instant credibility with people who don't understand athletics. See, my big thing is, I love getting on the soapbox because I do it all the time, but my big thing is, a D1 guy that has all this equipment and all this money and all this access to stuff, what does he really know about coaching at Asbury College, about driving a van, or about, trying to fundraise for an extra $500 for T-shirts or whatever? Yeah, he's got that D1 name behind him, but it really, in my opinion, doesn't translate well to the lower D3 and NAIA levels. But administrators are blinded to that. They see that D1, oh, wow, this guy was at Stetson for a year. Oh, wow, we got to hire him. And I think that's a mistake. But if you want to get in the business, then that's the game you want to play. You want to get that D1 experience on your resume.
Mm-hmm. So you already talked about it a little bit, but with different rule changes, small rule changes with basketball happening over different years, how do you adjust as a coach to that?
I don't know, because I can't think of, maybe I'm just too far removed from that, but I can't think of any rule change that really, really impacted me as a coach. The timeouts, they changed the number of timeouts and stuff, but I don't think that was very impactful for me. Yeah. That's a good question. I don't have an answer for you on that. I can't think of any. Give me a specific rule change if you can think of one and ask my opinion on it, because I don't think of it. I can't think of any top of my head that really altered the way I coached ever.
Yeah, so I guess a couple that I can think of. Even you talked about the shot clock, and of course that doesn't apply to you with the offense. But what about would you have to change things up if you played? If you all played against a team that just held the ball the whole time?
I tell you a quick story here. I coached JV basketball my one of the first years out here at the little Christian school I work at, and we were undefeated going to the last game, 23-0. Had a great season, had a really good team. Last game, we're playing at Lakewood Ranch, and they're beating us the whole game. We hit a couple threes in the last minute, tie it, forced overtime. My kids are wiped out. I had a couple kids sick. I only had 6 kids dressed this game. So we win the tap. They were in a zone. We held the ball the entire 4 minutes of overtime. So I've always wanted to do my entire coaching career, and I finally got to do it. Sent the kid, set a ball screen at the 5 seconds on the clock. He got fouled, made 1 out of 2 when we won. It was literally one of my favorite moments in coaching. But to answer your question, in college, it's 35-second clock, so, you can't really hold the ball that long.
Yeah.
Did you say there was another one you had, or just that was the one you think of?
It's not coming on top of my head, whenever it was, but, did they have the, the ring down low for, the charge block? Change?
Oh, no, they didn't have that. I kind of like that. I don't know. I kind of like that. What do you think about that?
I think it's interesting just because, I feel like they should do without it because, it's the position regardless. Because, you get what I'm saying? If a certain, situation happened just, a couple feet to the left, it's a different call than just right in the middle. I don't know.
I'd like to ask referees: Is it harder to watch with the kids' feet? Is this making your job harder, or is it making your job easier? I'd be very curious to. Maybe I'll ask one next time I run into one. Right. I'd be curious to hear their answer on that. We don't have it in high school down here.
Yeah. And what do you think about shot clocks going into high school? Do you think that would be a good thing or no?
We did not have it in Florida until. This year was optional. This year coming up, it's mandatory. So this will be our first experience with it. I don't know. I guess I'm ambivalent. In a perfect world, I'd like not to have a shot clock, but I also understand why there's 14 to 11 games. Sometimes you see in the first round of the Kentucky playoffs are a little. Do they have it in Kentucky yet? I know they've been talking about it.
No, sir. They've been trying to get the voting process, and a lot of schools are saying no, and it's mainly the economy stuff, and just because you have to get people working
Yeah.
the shot clock and just shot clocks being built into it.
Right. They're like $5,000, I think, for 2 shot clocks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, one thing that is kind of getting like the rules are getting bent a lot with high school sports is the transfer rules and like kids enrolling to schools as a non-resident. Is that a problem in Florida at all?
Boy, it's funny you bring that up. We just had a coaches meeting about it last night. So now in Florida, I can play Lakewood Ranch. I can play football at Lakewood Ranch, and then I'm a really good wrestler, so I can go to Braden Riffer and be a wrestler there. And then if I'm a good baseball player, I can go to Manatee High School for my for baseball. Play all 3 sports in the same year at 3 different schools and be immediately eligible. I can quit on Monday because I didn't play on Friday night's football game and play for a different school this Friday night. No sit-out time, no nothing. I think it is crazy, but that's what they just voted in at the June meeting.
Is that due to COVID?
No, it's just wild down here. I mean, it's just the Wild West. We don't the number of rules they have for sports down here in Florida compared to Kentucky, it's non-existent. Like our basketball team, they practice. They have quote unquote open gym where they're going over plays and stuff twice a week. Now this time of year, literally all year round. Or I know you can't do that stuff in Kentucky. You got dead period. I mean, Glenn Anderson, or what was Glenn Drury from Anderson County?
Right.
He got suspended for a couple games, and he got caught having an open gym before the season started.
Because with us, like, I mean, before, because what happened with us is kind of like a COVID. I mean, COVID kind of like bent the rules. Because before it used to be like, it mainly happened to like varsity players because, JV player going to a different place like doesn't have a huge impact. But if you play like a couple minutes in varsity and then like transfer to a different school, you'd have had to like sit out a year, like regardless. But now it's like, you can just go to whatever school. It seems like, and you can just immediately play. And it happened.
I'm telling you, down here, I literally, you can play 2 schools in the same week. You can play 3 different schools during the year. You don't have to sit. As long as you're academically eligible, you're eligible as soon as you're admitted into the new school.
Huh.
It's wild. I think it's a terrible, terrible idea, but we'll see how it goes this year, I guess.
Yeah.
It won't affect us because we're a private school, and so we have a full campus. We don't have any empty, so no one's going to be able to come in. But it could leave. They could get mad at a coach and just leave on Monday afternoon and be playing against us on Thursday or Friday.
Yeah. So, with like the off season, like, I mean, what's the school doing like with do they have like strength and conditioning like workouts and like open gyms or like? Yeah,
they have we have a strength and conditioning coach, and he does football at 8:00, and then they do cross country at like 10, and then basketball is in the afternoon sometime. Maybe I guess right before they have open gym, maybe like 5. Maybe 4:30, something like that, and then they have open gym at 6. Tuesdays and Thursday nights.
Gotcha.
And the girls have that as well. Actually, we have a real good girls volleyball program, and they work out at I think 3, and they have open gym from 4 to 6. So we get a lot of use out of the strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part because a lot of like. It's a lot of like the guys that are like my age and like a couple years younger that it seems like a lot of people are just getting held back, and so I think that's huge for like player development as like a strength and conditioning coach. But
it's funny you say that. Of the 5 kids that'll start for BCS this year in basketball, 4 of them were held back in middle school.
Yeah. Hey, does
what year in school are you gonna be?
I'm gonna be a sophomore.
Okay.
Yeah. So that leads me to my next question. Does Florida have a high school 5th year program?
No.
No. That's Kentucky. It's only for like the years that like people were in school during like COVID that like it was an optional like 5th year. Like I could have done a 5th year of high school like and played another year of sports with it.
And the big difference for us, I think, is that we didn't really close down. When the COVID came out, we shut schools down from like March 15th, I guess was the first day, through the end of that semester. But we opened back up in August, and we were playing football and playing, girls volleyball as soon as school started. So the kids that played baseball missed a good hunk of their baseball season. But other than that, the kids didn't miss any sports time.
Yeah. What do you think about that, like, extra year of eligibility in high school, and even with the NCAA they granted it too? What do you think about that?
I guess I can understand the rationale for it. I'm an old school guy. I don't think it was necessary, but I understand it's a different world now, and I understand why the rationale behind it. So I guess I begrudgingly support it.
Yeah.
I think you all should have stayed open like we did down here, though. It's my personal opinion.
Yeah. I wouldn't have been opposed to that, but my next thing. So this is kind of like a coaching philosophy question a little bit. So of course you've always liked shooting, and I like shooting, but with the game evolving to like be more pro shooting, what do you think that use of the traditional big man is still going to be in use?
I think it's going away, but I think that's the next market inefficiency. Is if you can find a big guy now and you can coach him up, I think you're gonna be way ahead of the game. I really think that's we don't do anything. Our coach does not do it. The ball never goes inside the post. Never, ever, ever, never. And most of the teams we play against are the same way. But I think if you can develop a big man, I think they're going to be at such an advantage because people aren't going to know how to guard him, and I think they're going to get a lot of foul trouble. They'll get the free throw line a lot. So if I was a coach now, man, I'd be trying to develop some sort of a big guy because I think you're kind of going against the grain. Your dad would tell you, it used to be all big guys, Patrick Ewing and those guys back in the day when I was running around. And then it went all to three-pointers. Rick Pitino came in at Providence, then Billy Donovan. They shot 1 million three-pointers, and so everybody was going to be a three-pointer. And that's kind of where the game keeps evolving that way. I think if you jump the track a little bit, go back to the big guy, I think there's a real market inefficiency there, and I think someone's going to take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Pitino and Billy Donovan. Were there any guys like that you wanted to kind of like have a little bit of their coaching philosophy and your coaching philosophy?
I mean, I know you guys don't like him. I think Pitino's a genius, man. I just think he not a great person, obviously, but as far as basketball goes, I don't know if I've come across a better coach than that guy. And I don't know if I would be able to implement his philosophy because I'm just not as smart as him. I'm just not as good at it as he is. So I think you got to kind of be true to yourself. But if there's one guy I got a lot of respect for their basketball knowledge, it'd be him and Jay Wright.
Mm-hmm. How long do you think it'll take for him to get St. John's to be dominant?
I bet they're in the NCAA tournament this year, and I bet they're in the Final Four within 3 years. Yeah. That's a strong statement. How about the Elite Eight in 3 years?
Yeah. I mean, you would think that I wouldn't be a fan of him just because he coached Louisville, but I'm actually a big fan of his just because, like, of course, I'm my dad's son, so I see a lot of the part of the game that is unnoticed by just fans. And Pitino is definitely one. But
when he came to Providence, my first year of playing college basketball, 1986-87 season, was the first year there was a three-point line, and that was his big year at Providence. And like nobody was shooting three-pointers. My college team, we shot like 123 pointers the whole year as a team. And his guys are out there just chucking it up, and Billy Donovan's running around like a crazy person. And man, it was so much fun to watch. And they made that magical run all the way to the Final Four, and it was just he changed basketball. How many people can would you say literally changed an already like Steve Jobs invented the personal computer and all that stuff? Okay, but Tino took something that already existed and completely revolutionized it. I think you got to give him a lot of credit for that.
Mm-hmm. So he was one of the coaches that did it, and Billy D was another one. What do you like if you're coaching Division One and being successful, why would you then think, okay, I'm gonna try to go to the NBA?
Because of the money, I think. I think they got big egos, which is understandable. They're very successful men, but they've got big egos that I can take this. What I'm doing here, I can take it to the NBA. And plus, how much did he get paid at Oklahoma City, man? It was an absurd amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so, to some people that matters.
So,
Are you talking about Pitino or are you talking about Billy Donovan?
both really, because
I think Pitino's a little more understandable in my opinion because he's a New York guy. The Knicks. I mean, to me, I get that. I don't get the Celtics one as much, but I understand why he left Providence for the Knicks. I think that to me that makes sense. I don't know why a guy like Billy Donovan would leave Florida to go to Oklahoma City.
no, but yeah, I mean even like the big one that I was even asking about is whenever Patino went to the Celtics after leading UK to the 2 straight Final Fours.
Yeah. I think the money overwhelmed him, and I guess he had lived up in Massachusetts too. But yeah, I'd like to ask him. He'd never tell you the truth, but I'd like to ask him, hey, do you regret that, or are you okay with that decision?
Right.
I bet in hindsight he would regret it, though he probably would never ever admit it.
Yeah.
But plus, I also think Kentucky, man, that's a tough place to coach. I can see him getting burned out there.
Oh yeah, I mean you see that Calipari's been coaching all these years, and I mean, if they don't win, then they're asking for his head. I mean it's.
Yeah, I'm not a big Calipari fan. I just don't think he's very good. I'm sorry.
I'm not a huge fan of him either, to be honest with you. He's a pretty dang good recruiter, but like whenever
Exactly.
it comes to X's and O's, like that's why.
What do they run? What do they run?
Right.
Besides a ball screen.
Ball screens and isolations.
Yeah, exactly. I've never been very impressed with. I think, like I said, I think it's gotten stale. I think it got stale in Patino's mind. It didn't get stale in the people's mind, but it got a little stale in Patino's mind. It definitely got stale with Tubby, even though I like Tubby a lot. But it got stale. He needed to go. Gillespie was just a drunken mess. We can't even talk about him. But I think it's gotten stale for Calipari now. I think he would be better served leaving, and I think UK would be better served if he left.
Yeah. Well, you know what also hurt Calipari is the falling out with Robic.
See, I don't know very much about that. Fill me in a little bit.
So Robic was his main guy for basically since Cal's start, and he was the head assistant. He did a lot of the X's and O's, and so that's why that run from 2010 to 2016, 17, that's why they were top 10 every year. But then I'm pretty sure that it was the COVID year, so the 2020, 2021, whenever no one could go to games, and Kentucky was just awful, compared to normal, that the differences started to show a little bit. And I remember one specific game. It was I'm pretty sure Kentucky against Mississippi State, and they were at Mississippi State, and Cal gets tossed with probably 10 minutes left in the game. Dante Allen, the Kentucky kid who everybody loved, it had been sitting on the bench, and he was very unhappy. And Robic put him in the rest of the game, and he had 27 or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, and he led him to a win in overtime, and it was a big win, everyone. And then Calipari just went back to not playing him. And so, I think that, like I said, Calipari's a great recruiter, but he needs.
So Robic quit then? Is that what?
Yeah.
He left
so they had quote unquote differences, and Robic left from there.
At the end of the season or in the middle of the season?
End of the season.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just don't remember that for some reason.
Yeah. So it was not very talked about, and it was just he's not returning, which was weird. Another one that's like that. Who kind of folds under pressure with the X's and O's is Painter from Purdue.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because he's just had some talented teams. he had the he had a number 1 seed this year, and they lost to a 16 seed. It was like he got out coached.
From my era, Steve Lapis was a guy who always folded under the late in game timeouts. Dale Brown at LSU, who I absolutely loved, but he was such a bad X's and O's coach. And they had a camera in the, you know how sometimes they get in the camera in the huddle at the end of the game, and he's trying to give instructions. They're playing Georgetown, and I guess either a tourney game or just a regular season game, and he's like explaining, setting the play up, and it was Georgetown's ball, and the other assistant coach was like, no, it's their ball. Like, he wasn't even aware. I was like, man, this guy is out to lunch right now, but he's such a good motivator. I always enjoyed listening to hear him speak.
Yeah. What about whenever Shaq got pulled down by somebody and he ran out of the court? I think it was against Tennessee.
yeah. Dale was a bit of a lunatic. It's kind of why I liked him too. He was always something was always going to happen. Something good, something bad. Something was always going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you ever heard him speak, you can probably find some stuff on YouTube. He is a great speaker. Very motivating. He's not an X and O's guy.
Yeah. So kind of switching topics here. So I do this question a lot just because it's popular, but do you have like an opinion about the Michael Jordan and LeBron James debate?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Jordan's just better in my opinion. I don't understand that debate. I really don't. LeBron's a more physical, imposing person, but yeah, he's Jordan just. He's a guy who changed the game. He changed the game of basketball, and LeBron hasn't done that. 6-0 in the finals versus, I don't even know what LeBron is, 6-5, 5-6, whatever it is. And Jordan didn't lead to create any super teams either. I mean, when you're pulling Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade down with you, and then you go out to LA and you start pulling guys out there, go back to Cleveland, you got Kyrie Irving. I mean, it's LeBron didn't do that kind of stuff.
So
plus, I find Michael didn't do that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
plus,
yeah.
I find LeBron just off-putting, very off-putting guy.
What have you gotten a chance to watch The Last Dance?
Yeah, it was fantastic.
Oh yeah.
That's what everyone was doing, right? We couldn't leave our houses when that was on.
Right.
It seemed like that was like right in the pinnacle of COVID when everyone had to stay inside, so we were all in there just waiting for the next one to come out, weren't we?
Yeah. Did you have any like nostalgia moments like while watching that?
Oh yeah. Just seeing old players like you forget about this guy and B.J. Armstrong, or you forget about how good Steve Kerr was and John Paxson. There was a lot of nostalgia in there.
Yeah.
A lot of nostalgia.
Yeah. Dad still watches that on Netflix. I mean, I bet he's probably watched it about 10 times, like each episode. Yeah.
I mean, they were a bit of a circus too. Like, when Pippen was pouting because when the year Jordan wasn't playing, Pippen was pouting when Kukoc got the last shot against the Knicks, and then Rodman's antics were just so over the top and so outrageous. It was a great era for basketball. Great era. And when he came back and had that first game back in the Garden and had all those points, I forget how many it was. It was a big number.
He was like 55?
That was a great. I'll never forget watching that in my living room there in Austin, in Nicholasville, and it's like, man, what a great game that was.
So, with different like routes with like with high school players like that are like 5 stars coming out of high school and like having different routes, like what do you think about these different like professional basketball leagues that they have now? Kind of like like the G League Ignite, you know what that is?
Yeah, where those guys are skipping college altogether. They're going to get paid for a year. They're going down to Australia and playing for a year.
Well, this one.
Is that what you're talking about?
No. So this one is they have a team of like it's mainly 18, 19-year-olds, but they'll get like some other G League teams.
So they're not part of the G League. They're playing independent of the G League. They're playing against the G League.
So I mean they're an actual like G League team, but like it's kind of like they're getting rentals, if that makes sense.
Okay. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. Whatever, different avenues for different people. I think that's all part of it. Are you against it?
No, I'm not. I think it's good because I mean, of course they've got like they've got what, like you talked about with the Division 1 like assistants and stuff. They've got the facilities, they've got the coaches, they've got everything like that is needed to prepare the guys. It's just that sometimes I feel like the college scene just has more like gives you more publicity because you're on ESPN, like on ESPN Game Day and stuff like that for a big matchup. But do you?
Yeah, I think that's true. I want to say, I'm down here in Florida, and we have a playoff game, and there'll be 150 people in there, and I always say to myself, or the people I'm with, in Kentucky, even the worst 14th region playoff game is going to be packed to the rafters. It just means more out there, and down here, I think there's too much emphasis on the travel ball stuff. We're up there, man. Being the high school team means something in Kentucky. Kentucky, the way they do basketball up there is just so tremendous, so terrific the way they do high school basketball. And, playing for your high school matters, man. Playing in those games matters. And down here, it's like, well, Johnny's not going to play in high school this year. He's got to play with his travel ball team. And they've got all these tournaments. It's just like, to me, it drives me insane. As a college recruiter, I want to see kids play for high school, and I want to see them, when it means something, not playing in an AAU tournament where the first guy with the ball over half court is going to be the guy that shoots it.
Right. So, with me talking about the skipping college to go professional, what would you advise these guys that could do that? Like, would you advise them to go to a Division 1 school, or would you advise them to go play professional for a year before declaring for the draft?
If you talk about rules and stuff, here's one that I hate. I hate the one and done. I hate it so much. I think it should be they should do it like the way they do in baseball. You can come out after your senior year in high school. You can get drafted. If you want to put your name in the draft, you can get drafted. Or you can go to college. If you go to college, you got to stay 3 years. I just think the 1 year thing, it's such a bad look for places that claim to be all about academics or supposed to be all about academics. And so to answer your question, if the kid's not really caring about college, then, I guess he can use college the same way the college is using him, but I would prefer to see them play, go overseas for a year or go to the G League for a year and develop their game that way. I'm not a big fan of the one and done. I'm really not.
Yeah, I'm not really either, to be honest with you. I mean, did you? Were you a fan of it whenever guys would go straight out of high school, or would you think that most of them should have at least had some guidance like the G League?
I don't know if for every Kobe Bryant who can go right out of high school, I forget that one guy's name, was the second pick in the draft who never did anything in the NBA, but I don't know, it's a life-changing amount of money for those guys, so I don't disrespect that. I don't have a problem with that. I think they're making a good financial decision as long as they save their money, but I think you either go to college for 3 years or you come right out of high school, just like they do in baseball. I mean, I work for the Orioles down here a little bit, and we got guys that got drafted last week that are in camp now that are high school kids, and they've made their decision, and they're going to turn professional, and that we've got a support system for them, and we teach them English and all this other stuff and help them along the way. But at the same time, you're responsible for yourself. You're an adult now. I think those guys coming out of high school, I think they should be able to make that decision for themselves. But at the same time, that's your decision. Now you've made it. You've got to follow through on it.
So, I'm out of questions. The last thing I'll say is there anything that you want to say to the audience or to me, or do you have anything on your mind?
No, not at all. I appreciate the opportunity to chat and to get to know you a little bit better, and I hope someone's listening to this.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on for sure. I mean, I know Dad appreciated talking to you for a little bit, and of course, like I said, I do too. So, thank you for coming on.
Thanks. Yeah. Hey, listen, good luck with that ladder this fall.
Thank you.
All right, man. Take care.
You too.